Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $6.65 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
Today is Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. If the Proud Boys use that phrase anywhere, they're going to have to get permission from a black church in D.C. We'll tell you exactly what happened when it comes to their trademark by chatting with the church's pastor. Also on today's show, the Justice for Greenwood founder Damario Solomon-Simmons will join us to explain their new plan to get reparations for the survivors of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Democratic lawmakers are concerned with Elon Musk access to the Treasury Department's payment system, but also they're kind of weak on the messaging. We'll talk about that here. Also, we explore how black-owned businesses can secure contracts following the dismantling of affirmative action in federal contracting. In tonight's Crockett Chronicles, guess what? Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett talked about white tears, and some MAGA voters are now regretting their choices. Venezuelan migrants in Florida are upset because they're about to get deported. Hashtag we tried to tell you. And the sheer stupidity of Donald Trump continues. He demands that water be released in Los Angeles to help with the fires. The idiot almost flooded an area where the farmers are. So guess what? 2.2 billion gallons of water totally wasted because this idiot thought he was doing something smart. Just dumb. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling.
Folks, a black church in Washington, D.C. now owns a trademark to the Proud Boys. Yep, you might say, wait a minute, what the heck happened? Well, remember when that racist group vandalized Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church in 2020? Well, they also got sued. Well, on Monday, Judge Tanya Jones Boisier granted the church full ownership of the group's now formerly owned trademark. William Lamar IV is a pastor of Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church. He joins me now in our Black Star Network studios. Pastor, glad to have you here. So this is quite a change. So take me back 5 years ago. What was it? They tore a Black Lives Matter flag down the church?
Yeah, so we had a huge Black Lives Matter sign in front of the congregation in solidarity with the movement. Of course, we know that often the movement and the church were at loggerheads, so we wanted to show support for these brave folk who were standing up for us, as we've always stood up for ourselves. And they breached the property, they tore down the sign, and they videotaped it. They put it out on the former Twitter, shouting racist epithets. It was a horrendous scene.
And there were folks who were arrested because of that.
Yes, they were arrested, and we immediately sought legal relief. Immediately.
So you filed the lawsuit, but was part of that lawsuit to get the trademark, or did
no? So we sued them initially for an amount that now is about $3.1 million. And interest is being added. Mm-hmm. And because they did not pay, because they defied the order of Judge Kravitz, we then sued them for ownership of their trademark to get what was awarded to us, mm-hmm. because they continue to defy orders. And we will not be quiet. We will not sit back. We will continue to come at them as our ancestors have continued to come to those who visited violence upon us. We won't stop.
And for folks who don't know, listen, when Donald Trump, after inauguration, he immediately pardon these folks.
Yes.
You had Proud Boys and Oath Keepers.
Yes.
Both of them racist organizations.
Yes.
And so they're so upset with you that they now are trashing you on social media. These, you see, your attorney just sent you these. So folks, go to my iPad. And so these are posts that they are putting on social media of Pastor Lamar. You see a bucket of chicken with his face on the front. You see this right here. It says, a big welcome to the new chairman of the Proud Boys, introducing the Reverend William Lamar IV, more commonly known in the Proud Boys stratosphere as Billy HIV. You see here the autonomous PB would like to welcome our new chairman and trademark holder, Reverend William Lamar IV, pastor of the AME Church in D.C., who now holds the trademark to our name due to the actions and incompetence of our former chairman and his inner circle. We hope this one isn't a federal informant, and for God's sake, they can't even stay away from the Capitol, sir. And then my chairman has his own federally recognized month, owns a sweet, dope-ass trademark, literally owns the previous chairman like a field slave, has never been a certified informant, hates white people almost as much as I do, looks good without a hat on. Look, this is how they behave, and of course, they Proud Boy King. So they're doing this, but and this here says Vice City Proud Boys official Miami chapter, but they use that name anywhere in public, they get slapped with a lawsuit.
Indeed, indeed. We will ensure that this order is enforced, and we will continue to use the courts to get what is due us.
So they think this is a joke, and y'all are saying, no, this is not a joke.
It's not a joke. The firm, Roland, that represented us, represented the Scottsboro Boys, represented Thurgood Marshall and Brown versus Board. They have been doing this for a century. And we have the right partners, and we have the spirit of Elizabeth Freeman, who sued for her own freedom. We have the spirit of Ida B. Wells Barnett. When black AME preachers like myself were afraid to talk about lynching, she continued to go forward. My grandfather said there is no rabbit in him, nor in anybody who is a descendant of him. I am not afraid. We will stand up together. We're going to keep fighting and telling the truth like you're doing right now.
You know, we're living in this space right now where there are a lot of black folk who, and they've been on my show, and folks have said, man, look, Ro, we tired, we're depressed, we're upset, you know, we've been fighting, we thought these things were behind us. And I've heard this from millennials and Gen Z. And one of them, I kind of went off on the show, and I was trying not to. And what I said to them was, I took it back to when I was on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists, and we went after CNN for no black execs. And I was calling them out, calling these white executives out. And I remember calling Bernard Shaw. Say, Bernard, I want to get your permission, because he called out these white men when he got the Lifetime Achievement Award at our convention in Vegas. And I said, I want to get your permission to use this video. He said, Roland, he said, every generation has had its moment. Every generation has had to fight. It's just now your turn. And that's the thing. So I get folk who are upset and frustrated with MAGA and Trump, all sort of stuff, but this is what our folk have had to deal with from the moment we hit these shores.
Roland, remind your listeners the name of your network.
Black Star Network.
Black Star, the United Negro Improvement Association, Marcus Garvey, up you mighty race. Mm-hmm. You can accomplish what you will. We cannot forget who we are. And here's the thing. America is designed to produce what it produces. Mm-hmm. It was not designed for pluralism. It was not designed as a democracy. They even kept all white men from voting until Andrew Jackson gave the franchise to all white men. This was not a project for us, but we have fought to make it a project. I tell people who come to Metropolitan, if you are not a white man and you are thriving in this nation, it is because of black people. It is because of our efforts to create a democracy, because the founders never intended democracy.
Right.
They never intended it. We have forced the issue. Frederick Douglass from our church fought against the Chinese Exclusion Act. We have never just fought for ourselves. We fought for human beings, and we will not shrink in this moment. And what disturbs me is black people now we have corporate jobs, we got money, we got vacations, and we think that we are safe.
Right.
We are not safe. And the little trinkets we have, they are fighting to take them away. Get the hell up and do something.
I was literally texting a brother today. They're trying to lay off about 1,000 EPA workers. And he said, I've been talking to many of them. Many of them are starting families. They thought their jobs were safe. They thought a government job was safe. And I said, they're not safe. I had another brother I was texting today, and I said, I told him, I said, the destruction of America is underway. So what I did was it was a video, and I did a screenshot of the Wall Street Journal's page. And it was all of these crazy things that MAGA's doing. And I said, and he said, well, we're seeing this thing in real time. It's being televised. I said, well, brother, I've been speaking on this very thing since 2009. I said in speeches, on television, on radio, warning people that we are living in what I call white minority resistance. That because everything goes back to a study that was done, a polling that was done around the time Obama was inaugurated. And the question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America for your children? Black people, Latino people, Asian Americans, all more than the majority. There was only one group that was less than the majority, white folks. And I saw that and I said, this is about to be a problem. And then what did we see? Glenn Beck on the air, Obama, he hates white people. And you begin to see this thing, and I said that which turned into my book, White Fear, and how the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds. This is about power, control, money, and what they are doing. They are attacking the civil rights infrastructure, which is the economic infrastructure of Black America.
Another challenge, Roland, is the church has failed black people. So let's be clear, the majority of the black church has been conservative, and I think has been captured by white evangelical theology. The black prophetic church has always been a minority movement, but a strong one, punching above our weight. The challenge I see is that preachers like me have abdicated the theologies of Harriet Tubman and of Nat Turner, have abdicated the theologies of Richard Allen and others who understood that what we have to do is there is no salvation not tethered to human physical and economic freedom. And so if you read the first chapter of Exodus that talks about the folk looking out and seeing the numbers of the enslaved increasing, and they say, we must destroy them. We will kill their sons, and we will take their girls for ourselves. Were it not for those midwives in the text, the people would have been destroyed. And I want to offer thanks to our sisters who time and time again have saved us, have stood up. Now it's time for us to work together and to see that this is rooted in white demographic anxiety and a hatred of seeing anybody not white in power. And it will be unrelenting. The sad thing is, in our comfort, we thought that our children would be free. And the majority of black people today have less than we had at the height of the movement. So also the schism between blacks like me who are relatively comfortable and the majority of black people who are poor, low wealth, low wage, we have to come together because when they come for us, they're not gonna ask about degrees. They're not going to ask if we split
first
verbs.
Of all, you can have all the degrees you want. They still going to call you a DI. Still going to call you that. I was taping an episode of with brothers last night of Earn Your Leisure. It's going to air tomorrow night at 10 p.m. And they raised the question. They said, well, this is how Democrats have failed black people. Black people saying this, that, and the other. And I literally said, first of all, if anybody says nothing has changed, that's a lie. I said, I'm not even entertained. I said, that's a waste of my breath. I said, because that's a lie. I said, we could sit here and have. I said, let me be real clear. We know, because their setup was, black church infrastructure, NAACP, all of this black infrastructure tied to Democrats. And what have we gotten? And I said, well, I know what you will never get here. I said, I know what has been, what we've gotten here, but what more we can demand here, meaning difference between Democrats and Republicans. I said, this is abundantly clear to me. Where do folks stand on basic fundamental issues? I said, if a person over here says, I believe in economic inclusion, and the person over here says, I want to end all programs that allow for economic inclusion, to me, this ain't a difficult conversation. And so I'm not about to get caught up in no Democrat-Republican thing. I said what I advocate for is a black thing in terms of what is the best interest of black people. I said, now, you bring me a Republican agenda, I'll look at it and say, is that in the best interest of black people? But I dare say what I'm seeing from 2 blocks away ain't remotely in the best interest of black people, and it is specifically about targeting black people. And for this man, and here's what's so crazy, when those charges were filed against those Proud Boys, that was from the U.S. attorney in D.C. in terms of when they were with those charges. The acting U.S. attorney in D.C. is their former lawyer. That's who Donald Trump put in charge. He represented Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and he filed a brief with the court going against the Department of Justice when that Oath Keeper, when the federal judge ruled that Oath Keeper cannot come into the United States Capitol. That lawyer is now the U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C.
One of the things you raised, Roland, is very important. We made a big mistake in wedding black politics to the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is a corporate party, and whenever it is inconvenient for them to fight for liberation, they drop the agenda. Now, what we have to do, the politics of black people has always been practical. As you said, why would I vote for someone who wants to clearly get me and my people out of the economy? We don't do that. We vote practically for a choice that will further our agenda, but this is the problem. We stopped thinking that it was victory for us when they won, when our job was always to push them farther and to build more power. So I'm a registered Democrat, but I do not trust Democrats to freebie. I cannot. We cannot. They will only go so far. Take a look geopolitically at how they have to keep their mouths closed on certain issues. Because if not, then they are separated. It is what Gerald Horne always says, that we will only be free if we have an international view. If we join our struggle, like King did, with the struggle of black, poor, brown, minoritized people around the world. This is what Du Bois was doing. This is what Douglass did. You have to see us internationally. Our leadership today is afraid to say that this that we see, this fascism in America, is related to what you see in Germany, what you see in Russia with Putin, Italy, what you see in South Africa. There is a rise in white anxiety. We've seen this before. What we did then is we doubled down and we strengthened our institutions. Here's another problem I have, Roland. And I understand a lot of black people have separated themselves from black institutions. You think that now that you have made it, your job is to get as far away from things black. No. Now is a time, black people watching Roland, with disposable income, to support with your money and your presence black institutions that are fighting for liberation. Don't just go because they're black. Don't go for the coonery and the buffoonery, but find those who are doing real work and support them. Your grandchildren's lives depend on it.
So it was interesting, you made that point. You were talking about the black church earlier. And I saw a story Ben Crump had talked about. He said, we need the black press now more than ever. He mentioned NMPA. So I sent Ben this, which is from Dr. King's book, Chaos or Community, Where Do We Go From Here? Go to my iPad. And I reference this a lot on the show. And MLK writes this, and this was his last book. It was his least popular book because he said some stuff that just scared white folk, but he also scared black people. He said, there are already structured forces in the Negro community that can serve as the basis for building a powerful united front. The Negro Church, the Negro Press, the Negro fraternities and sororities, and Negro professional associations. We must admit that these forces have never given their full resources to the cause of Negro liberation.
We have not.
There are still too many Negro churches that are so absorbed in a future good over yonder, he put that in quotations, that they condition their members to adjust to the present evils, in quotations, over here. Too many Negro newspapers have veered away from their traditional role as protest organs, agitating for social change, and have turned to the sensational and the conservative in place of the substantive and the militant.
Yes, sir.
Too many Negro social and professional groups have degenerated into snobbishness and a preoccupation with frivolities and trivial activity.
Yes, sir.
But the failures of the past must not be an excuse for the inaction of the present and the future. These groups must be mobilized and motivated. And the reason, so I keep this in the favorites in my phone, because I'm always referencing it. I've memorized it as well.
Brother Roland, look, you're going to make me jump out of my skin, because this is why in 1967, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI called Martin King the most dangerous Negro in America. They do not consider any of us to be dangerous anymore because we sing from their sheet of music. It is not one of liberation. It is not one of saying we are one people. What he says there, that attack is the attack of E. Franklin Frazier and black bourgeoisie, the same thing. And this is what people, when they talk about the talented 10th, they forget that 50 years later, Du Bois made a speech, and he said he was wrong about the talented 10th, because the talented 10th, instead of lifting the race, had become better at being materialist and white-centered than white people. They had abandoned their call to use what they had received and uplift economically and educationally to lift the masses as one people and to lift up all of those who are struggling. The black struggle has always been universal. We have always fought for all. We have always done it. In Reconstruction, Du Bois is clear when the whole Hollywood is based on the mythology of white supremacy. That first movie, Birth of a Nation, it is to fight the idea that blacks can self-govern and be a part of democracy. This is as American as apple pie and baseball. And until we awaken to the fact that that's what it was, but we fought it before, we can fight it again and still be joyful, still be loving. But remember that this is our vocation. If we stay here, this is what we must do.
So it's interesting you bring up that Du Bois speech because...
You got that too?
Yes. It's, go to my iPad. It's literally on the screen. And he gave that speech at the Grand Boule of Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, the Boule at Wilberforce, Ohio, which took place August 11th through the 13th, 1948.
Yes, sir.
And so for all of y'all who are, I see Scott Bolden waiting to speak. He's also a member of the Boule, just like I am. And literally what he said is the same thing that I've even said to Boule members. And I've said the exact same thing to Alpha and to the Deltas and the AKs and Omegas and Kappas, what King talked about, that the fundamental problem is what I told the brothers on EYL yesterday as well. I said the fundamental problems that I see, like King says, is that we spend so much time on what's happening on the internal politics of our organizations, and we ain't even talking about what's happening outside. And the reason regular, ordinary folk see us as the bourgeois elite is because they never see us showing up in our colors, representing our organizations at the city council meeting, at the county meeting, at the school board meeting, at the state legislature. Some do. Some are doing that. And I said, and this is the moment. What's happening now is that our people are crying out for black leadership right now, and they're saying, what is the response going to be to MAGA and these white nationalists, these white supremacists, and a lot of folk are real quiet.
And it hasn't changed. So what Dr. Du Bois did, he resigned from that fraternity. He resigned. And his idea was that each member group of that fraternity would, in their locality, he said that that fraternity could transform our people if each group of those professional brothers,
meaning each chapter,
in their local space would lift using their resources. And when they refused that, he said goodbye. Now the answer has not evaded us. We built schools, we built colleges, we built mutual aid societies. We know what to do, but now we have become so polarized, and black people that think they have so judgmental. So what I hear my mother reminding me of is where she grew up in Macon, Georgia, you had doctors living next door to workaday folk because they had no choice. We were caring for one another, but now, as a pastor, I see some sad things, and I have heard black parents who tell me there is no value in their children being in black institutions or black social spaces, like literally. And I don't know of other cultures that say that.
Right.
So that poisoning of the well, you are, in the words of a dear friend, fattening frogs for snakes. And it will not be long before we are consumed if we do not divorce ourselves from that mentality.
Well, before I go to my panel here, you get a kick out of this. Every time I'm in a conversation or I see a posting, and I have a lot of these conversations, and there are a number of people who I know. I know a number of black millionaires, mega millionaires, and even black billionaires. And when I hear them talk about what we should do, I always hit my digital guy, said, can you check the rolls to see if they are a donor to the show? And the answer is always no. So the same folk who are always saying, oh, brother, hope you're taking care of yourself, because we need you, we need you speaking. And I go, but you're not actually helping fund it. But you could, but you're not. So I always do that. I always do it because, and I would challenge folk, you can't say this is what we need in black media, this is what we need, if you're not willing to also make it happen. Happens all the time. And when I say all the time, not one time have I called him and he said, oh yes, so-and-so's name is on this list. And it's if I listed the names, it would be a who's who of black America.
Roland, how can we convene those people? Again, don't convene on Facebook, because we know those attentional oligarchs are already in the pocket of MAGA. How can we convene? Because you know more of them. I may know 2, you may know 2,000 of them. But how do we get in a space to say, this is what we will do for one another? We have our own economy. There are black people of extraordinary wealth just here in Washington. And many of them are not a part of any black institution where they're really giving their largesse. That's not who we've been as our best selves. What happened to us?
Well, I think the first thing, but again, panel, get ready, I'm going to go to you. Here's what I think has often happened. And I tell people all the time, well, we can't do this. We seek a consensus before we move. Whereas I say, if I call 100 people, and 10 show up to the meeting, I'm not spending any time talking about why the 90 didn't show up. I'm spending all my time on the 10 that did show up. And then I'm gonna ask those 10 that we meet next month, I need you to bring one person. So I know guaranteed next month we're gonna have 20 people. Then next month we're gonna have 40. Then the next month we're gonna have 80, then 160. So and then once we start, because I did this video the other day, because this is, and I use Nehemiah. Nehemiah saw the wall, he was pained by it. He told the people his plan, the people said, let us rebuild. Part of the issue, those people are waiting to hear a plan. They're waiting to hear a plan. We spend lots of time on the initial meeting.
And then
but there's no plan. Yeah. And so what then happens is they get frustrated when ain't no plan, so why am I wasting my time with the meeting? And so I then say, we have to create a plan, start it, and then come back and say, oh, we got a plan, we already started, and we already had success, but we can do more with it. There were black people who literally told me this would not work. I didn't listen to them. They said, man, you're wasting your time. Didn't listen to them. This was funded, self-funded by me, but also the people who watch. I didn't waste my time on the rich black people who I personally knew and told about this, who I personally text, who never responded. What I did do was tell the regular ordinary folk, like Nehemiah did, let's rebuild, let's build, and the people said, let us rebuild. That to me, I think, is where we are. We have to call the meeting, and whoever shows up, we're going to work with them. Then we're going to build. And then once we start rocking and rolling, oh, y'all want to come join? We're not slowing down, so y'all better hop on while we moving. But we keep waiting for that consensus meeting.
And well, let me say this, because I see Ida B. Wells behind it. I'm thinking about
and James Baldwin right there.
Oh wow, and Ella Jo
Mr. B right there.
Oh wow, and Mr. B. The Ella Jo Baker is in my mind.
Yep.
That the masses are already struggling for their liberation, and what we have to do is to listen and to learn. And people are asking, who is the leader? Stop trying to enshrine one person.
There's no leader.
There are movements around. It's distributed, it's dispersed, and we need to connect. We need to connect and learn. Do not make the mistake of what Empire does, which is, I am always the teacher. I have all knowledge. Listen and learn, because those who have been struggling have been making progress. And if we come together and coalesce, really, I think those who have must resource and amplify those who are doing good work on the ground. I think that there is a possibility that we can continue to push back, but never forget that America always comes back with the backlash when we make progress. That will never, the mistake we made was believing that America was not going to be America post the Obama situation or whatever people thought.
They fell for the post-racial.
No. I never, you cannot, it's what Jeremiah Wright has said, and I think he got this from Charles Long, that if you bake a cake, once the cake is baked, you can't take the eggs and the sugar and the milk out. The American cake has been baked in such a way that we have been trying our best to put the icing of justice on it, but they keep taking it off. So we got to continue to figure out, if we're going to stay here, what our strategies will be. And it will only happen if we're together. And this internal class struggle within black people and bourgeois judgment is a demon that must be exorcised if we will be free.
Well, absolutely. And so the thing that so many of us need to understand when you mention Ella Baker, the reason she and King clashed is that King believed pulpit to pew. She believed pew to pulpit. And if anybody wants to understand that, go to my iPad. You need to get Barbara Ransby's book, Ella Baker and the Black Freedom Movement, A Radical Democratic Vision. So I got that on the shelf as well. So know all that very familiar. My pound, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice, the EPA. Melinda Hale, actress and content creator. A. Scott Bolden, he is former chair of the National Bar Association and D.C. Chamber of Commerce, joining us from D.C. So glad to have all three of you here. Scott, I'll start with you. Your question for Pastor Lamar.
Good evening, Pastor.
Good to see you, sir.
Good seeing you. This is a fascinating discussion. We could do a 2-day conference on this discussion. I agree with everything you've said. For someone who is in big corporate law and a history maker in big corporate law, it takes courage and fearlessness to stand up and to lead and to have a consciousness about your blackness when often you're the only one in the room. So few of us have that, right? And those of us that do, that obligation came from either our parents. My parents were civil rights activists in Illinois. I have a very black resume, indoctrinated at Morehouse College and Howard Law School, and I've never lost that consciousness. But I would like for you to comment on one thing, the role of historical black colleges today versus the white ancestors who started them, if you will, and how you see their role as an institution, whether they're black bourgeoisie or not, but they're producing a middle class. And we as African-American professionals still don't give enough back to support those very institutions. Money has compromised our consciousness, if you will. We're out there, don't get me wrong, me, Ben Wilson, and so many others, but they're just not enough. And when you're the only one in the room, you got to be fearless and stand up and stand for your community. But if you don't feel connected to that consciousness of those communities of color, you think you only have to stand up for yourself. We have to deprogram that, as I think you said. But can you talk about that in the context of historical black colleges?
Oh, Brother Scott, thank you for the question. And I myself am a product of the highest of 7 hills, Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. And one of
the Rattler.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They're yes, most definitely. And let me say this. these schools help to produce a thriving black middle class. And those of us in the black middle class are often unaware of how small we are. The black middle class is small in comparison to the black masses here. And again, I do not want to separate us from an international perspective, but we'll speak domestically now. And let me say that what we inculcated at our best as black colleges is people who would be community connected and conscious. I think part of the challenge is that we not only are maneuvering in capitalist spaces, but we have adopted capitalist values. We cannot, black people and those who are for liberation, maneuver within capitalism, which is a system designed to produce extreme poverty. It is designed to extract from the masses. And the challenge is our mothers and fathers were in capitalist systems like A.G. Gaston, but A.G. Gaston did not have a capitalist mentality. John Johnson was engaging in capitalism, but did not have a capitalist mentality. Madam C.J. Walker was funding NAACP and freedom movement. So she was moving within capitalism, but she did not have a capitalist mentality.
John Hope Bryan said you can't give money away like a socialist until you make it like a capitalist. That's his phrase.
Right. So they had money, but they did not wed their spirits to the capitalist ethos. Today, our leaders from pulpit to corporate boardrooms have wed ourselves to capitalist values, and that is why the black masses do not trust us.
Melinda.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed listening to both of you talk. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up is just reiterate the fact that you were saying, you know, every era our community goes through this having to fight back just against racist, nonsensical ideologies. And we are tired, but I think it's in our DNA, as you mentioned, that we have to keep pushing back and fighting back against this. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, do you think now having the trademark of Proud Boys being owned by the Black church, do you think that that's going to embolden their base even more?
It appears that it will, in many ways, that we know that they will not lie down, that they will not take this lying down, they will fight. What I want to recover, what you said, is we do have to fight, but I need black people to understand that we never stopped having joy. That we have always been creative and loving. I use the image of Congo Square in New Orleans. The French culture allowed the enslaved on Sunday to gather to sell the wares that they created as artisans. And it was there in Congo Square, in the midst of enslavement, that our people created what we now call jazz, which is the basis of all American artistic production. When Africans there who took that one day of quote unquote liberative movement, they created a music that really powers the world. What we need to understand is, even when we have been in dire straits, we never stop living, loving, frying fish, inviting one another out, making love, making babies, making music. We must still be fully human beings, but we must be willing to fight. So I don't want us to give either. And we must also rest. So we've got to balance a number of things. But yes, they will keep coming. I mean, it is unrelenting. And the thing I want to remind us of is they have been unrelenting, but so have we. Ernest Green, who's a member of our congregation, said part of the reason he fought with the Little Rock Nine is that he had a history teacher that taught him about the Maroon community. The Maroon communities who left the places of enslavement, went deep into the woods, into the bayou, connected sometimes with themselves, sometimes with natives, and they built places of freedom and connection. So my argument is, we gotta fight, but we gotta be creative, we gotta have joy, we gotta rest, we have to be full human beings, because this onslaught is designed not only to distract us, but to diminish the power that we have to be transformative and revolutionary.
Mustafa?
Minister, thank you for feeding the spirit and also, feeding the activism that is so necessary. Fannie Lou Hamer once said that nobody is free until everybody is free. What does freedom look like for Black folks in 2025?
freedom for black people in 2025 looks like first, very basic, the ability to move freely without molestation. I ought to be able to worship a few blocks from here without some violent fools desecrating my place of worship. And freedom of movement, we know, is counter to everything American. We know police forces were founded to control black movement. We know redlining existed to keep blacks in certain places. So part of what freedom looks like is dismantling every American impulse to control black movement. And we got to be careful because we police ourselves in unhealthy ways. So that's one. I think another is a right to fully thrive economically. Now here's the problem. When we have risen economically, violence has been used to beat that back.
Yes.
In Tulsa, in Rosewood. Lynching was not about the sexual stuff that they used, but it was about what Ida B. Wells wrote. It was economic envy. Leave us alone. We're not bothering you. When we thrive together. So I think it looks like being able to move. It looks like, and here's the problem, meritocracy. Give me a break. Meritocracy has never existed in America. They created systems to keep people from competing.
Right.
Any idea of meritocracy, if you buy that, you are believing the most abominable lie. So give me the chance to participate economically without exploitation. Give me freedom of movement and allow me to gather with my people without you're trying to come and destroy what we're doing. See, the attack on the church tells us that they have more faith in what we can create when we're together than we do. They are attacking the thing that they know to be our strength, but we have not awakened to it. So what I want to know is, I can't get in Scott Bolden's checkbook, but where's the money going? Because I've seen Scott. I know Scott. So what are we doing with it?
I'll publicly get in his check.
You get Scott. All right, so you off the hook, brother Scott.
Knows,
all right.
He knows I will jam him up. I'll jam him up in a heartbeat on air. I made him donate on air because he kept telling me, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, I ain't waiting on you.
It's all love, brother Scott, all love.
Pastor, Scott, you know I ain't lying. I take cap of money too. You mentioned Tulsa, and there's a new initiative to try to secure reparations for those survivors. Joining us right now, Damario Solomon-Simmons. Of course, he's with Justice for Greenwood. Damario, you had a news conference today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, good to see everybody. Well, we were able to put forward our Project Greenwood, and the big news is our new black mayor has stated that he supports significant parts of our plan, and in the next couple of weeks, we'll be rolling out what he's going to do for us down here in Tulsa. So we're really excited about that.
What does the plan entail?
The plan entails, first and foremost, that we get our 2 living survivors who are both 110 years old, Viola Ford Fletcher and Leslie Benefield Randall, that we get them compensated for the injustice and the pain and trauma that they have suffered over the last 103 plus years. We're also looking for a victims compensation fund for all the outstanding claims that are still outstanding. We're looking for the city to do things to help make sure that this history never is erased by declaring June 1st of each year a citywide holiday. We're asking for a hospital be built and several other programs for our descendants, including a scholarship program, a business grant program, and a program for our 13 surviving churches to have access to city funds so they can continue to move forward.
You might remember when I was there for the 100th, when the folk gathered at the convention center, when they had that economic forum or whatever they wanted to call it. You remember I went over there and I was trying to speak, but I had to get back where Biden was speaking, and I took a photo, I'm trying to find it, of all those sponsors that were on there. Are you also planning to send that plan to every single one of those folks who was on that banner by saying, y'all were just trying to get some credit for being here for the 100th, here's an economic plan for the community?
Absolutely, and we're looking forward. This will be a public-private partnership. There will be opportunities for those businesses who made those type of commitments to participate. We're also going to be working with some some pretty prominent national folks. I won't say their names today, but some Black African Americans who are very successful in business, who will be a part of this plan, moving this forward. So we're very excited and looking forward to working with all these different entities. And we still are calling upon those insurance companies who fail to pay on the claims unjustly, those that are still in business like Chubb's and AIG and Hartford Group, et cetera, that they will make good on their promises and pay the claims that they should have.
What are you also asking the people, the residents, and people those of us who don't live in Tulsa, to also help with this?
Absolutely. I want you all to go to justiceforgreenwood.org/Project Greenwood. That's justiceforgreenwood.org/Project Greenwood. And just find a pledge to say that you are supporting Project Greenwood, and that you understand that justice for Greenwood is justice for Black America. In this time when we're dealing with so much destructive divisiveness about our history, this is Black History Month, and nothing is more Blacker than Black Wall Street, and nothing can move us forward further than getting the justice and reparations that these two survivors deserve, because the massacre was not just about what happened here in Tulsa, it altered Black America. If we can get justice here in Tulsa, even in the onslaught of everything that's happening in D.C. and around this nation, we can get justice and continue to have hope moving forward, as the brother Manister was saying earlier.
All right then, Damario, I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Hey, good to see you, Roland. Talk to you soon. Peace.
All right, thanks a lot. Pastor, I want to close it out with this. I mean, this is the thing that Scott raised the point, and I really do believe that that's probably the most important thing. Black folks who are moving in these spaces, Black folks who have significant jobs, Black people who own companies, Black folks
on corporate boards,
Black people who on corporate boards. You have to have intestinal fortitude. You got to have some courage. I've directly challenged Black board members. How is it you sitting on this company board and they are servicing products to Black folk, but they're not advertising in Black-owned media? How is it that they're not, and when I talk about how I look at a race index, John Rogers calls it business diversity, professional services. How are you using outside firms, but there are no Black law firms, no Black accounting firms. All these companies have catering deals, but are you any Black caterers, any Black transportation companies? So you sort of broaden this view. I've challenged civil rights groups by saying, listen, a small check that you get doesn't make up for the billions being left on the table. And so much of this really boils down to folk who have some courage and are willing to say something and do something. And you might have to recognize that in some cases, like I've always said, every job, I said, I expect to be fired. So they wouldn't even know. That was just at the starting point. But there's so many of our folk who are in positions where they have leverage, influence, and yes, power, but are absolutely scared to use it.
Unfortunately, Roland, the thing is that even if Black people get a larger piece of the pie and the largesse is distributed more equitably, if they have a capitalist mentality, it will not make a difference. It will come to them and stay as reservoir, but not become conduit. We have to build the power of the economics of Black folk who believe in community.
Right.
You don't get admission because you're Black. You get admission because we have seen that what you get, you ensure that the community is lifted.
I told a brother hit me. He said, Roland, if you, he was blown away actually when I said this. I said that if somebody offered me, they said, hey, you could get $500 million in advertising, or these 10 Black media companies could get $50 million each, which one would you choose? I said the 50. And he was like, are you serious? I said, yeah. I said, because here's what you're not thinking. That's 10 different companies. That's family lineage. I said that I was trying to walk him through, it's not one person. I said, oh, it's real easy if one person, and there are some Black people who I've confronted in this space. And I've said, your problem is you want to eat all of it. You don't want anybody Black to share. You want to eat all. I said, and the reality is, I said, $340 billion is spent every year on advertising. Disney can't eat all of it. Comcast can't eat all of it. iHeart can't eat all of it. I said, so what makes you think you can eat all of the black share. I said, even you can't do that. So why are you hoarding? And I challenged his brother on that, and he got real silent. He got real silent about it. And I also believe that what Du Bois did in that speech is what a lot of us also have to do. We also cannot be fearful of challenging our own by saying, we're not going to give you cover. And, oh, man, that's great. We got a black board member. Yeah, but if you only looking out for yourself and you getting that check and your family's benefiting, you ain't helping black people when it was actually black community, Earl Graves, Reverend Jackson, and others that fought to create the opportunities for you to even get selected.
Up you mighty race.
That's what a lot of them cats, they don't want to hang around me because they like, okay, he way too black. he black.
Look, Jack Johnson.
I see it. But that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah.
We also have to not be fearful of challenging our own folk who are scared.
We have to. And the best of us have always done that. And the majority sees and they hear. And I believe there is a spirit trying to coalesce. And if we will ride the wings of that spirit, that ancestral spirit of liberation and freedom, that divine spirit, there is more than we can accomplish here than we have already accomplished.
All right. Pastor Lamar, we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a bunch.
A pleasure.
I'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. And yeah, that name was chosen for a reason.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Next on Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, women of color are starting 90% of the businesses in this country. That's the good news. The bad news, as a rule, we're not making nearly as much as everyone else. But joining us on the next Get Wealthy episode is Betty Hines. She's a business strategist, and she's showing women how to elevate other women.
I don't like to say this openly, but we're getting better at it. Women struggle with collaborating with each other. And for that reason, one of the things that I demonstrate in the sessions that I have is that you can go further together if you collaborate.
That's right here on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Coming soon to the Black Star Network.
But y'all, when you're on that stage or when you're and you're seeing 2 and 3, 4 generations in the audience, that's got to speak to you about the power of what y'all have become.
Oh, most definitely. I think we were doing our show before our tour, before our break, and remember, I was watching this kid. I could not take my eyes off him because he was about 9 or so. He was sitting in the front row with his
over on the right-hand side. Yes.
I was amazed that this kid knew everything, and I was like tripping to see how many songs this kid actually knew.
And he knew them all.
And he knew them all. We had to go over there and bring him on stage and take a picture with him, at the end of the show and stuff, because it was just that amazing. It's like, this is crazy.
The music travels everywhere, like what Philip was saying, seeing this young kid. Then you hear our songs on commercials, cold commercials. Then you have the younger ones that hear our music in animation.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Democracy in the United States is under siege. On this list of bad actors, it's easy to point out the Donald Trumps, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, or even the United States Supreme Court as the primary villains. But as David Pepper, author, scholar, and former politician himself says, there's another factor that trumps them all and resides much closer to many of our homes. His book is Laboratories of Autocracy, a wake-up call from behind the lines.
So these state houses get hijacked by the far right, then they gerrymander, they suppress the opposition, and that allows them to legislate in a way that doesn't reflect the people of that state.
David Pepper joins us on the next Black Table, here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, the necessity of believing in things you can't see. It's called faith. It comes in all shapes and sizes, and it's powerful. And it's a big part of being able to live a balanced life.
The valley I experienced being a cancer survivor was one where my footing was completely unstable. I had no idea what to do. And in that instance of not knowing what to do, I had to rely on faith.
That's all next on A Balanced Life, only on Black Star Network.
How you doing? My name is Mark Carey, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Deep into it, like pasteurized milk without the 2%. We getting deep. You want to turn that shit off? We're doing an interview, motherfucker.
All right, folks, we have consistently tried to explain to you that the efforts of MAGA and Donald Trump is to cut off the economic flow to black America by freezing folks out of various contracts. There is serious concern that what is going to happen over the next several years, you're going to see a dramatic drop in African Americans getting these contracts. Lori Smith is the CEO of Aculigent, I think that's pronounced correctly, a company that assists black entrepreneurs in gaining access to federal government contracts. She's the author of GovCon Revenue Strategy, Winning Business Proposal Strategies, and Customer Relationship Management. Glad to have you here. She joins us now from Savannah. So, Lori, this is real. We know from the last time the Trump folks stopped collecting racial data. They bundled contracts, which made it harder for businesses to apply for a lot of these contracts. Biden-Harris unbundled the contracts, which is the reason we saw last year $10 billion, an all-time high in contracts going to black-owned businesses. The attacks on DEI, the attacks on so many other programs, I've been saying that this could be an economic calamity for black folks, because if you see Republicans do this on the federal level with federal contracts, and then we see the same thing happen on the state level, the county level, the city level, the school district level, this is going to be a huge, huge loss in billions of dollars going to black-owned businesses.
Hi, and thank you so much for having me. And potentially that could otherwise be the case. I think what we have to be mindful of is that the thing that actually changed was, and the reason we had the $10 billion increase was as a result of the Biden administration's increase or leveraging his authority to increase the SDB, the social economic disadvantage businesses percentages up to 15%. And so that was increased specifically in that vein. But right now, the floor is level. And what I'm convinced is that as long as we do our preparation, the opportunities are still available for us. And what we just have to do is continue to shore up and just come to the table prepared. When you say that, what does that actually mean? Because if we've already seen the lawsuits over the 8A program, where changes had to be made, we saw a Republican judge rule that the MBDA, Minority Business Development Agency, had to also include white applicants as well. And so what then happens if all of the various programming, and so we see the Trump folks, they're getting rid of anything that says diversity, inclusion, that says race. And so when you look at those offices that were funded and created to help minority business owners, contractors apply for these dollars, if all those things go away, then what is the infrastructure to help these folks? Well, the infrastructure that's available continue to be the agencies and even the contracting offices of themselves. So the Small Business Administration, for the most part, we are in a wait and see posture, whereas and we're waiting to see what everything ultimately looked like. I don't think Loeffler has been confirmed as the SBA administrator, but that's who's slated for that position. So you have to wait and see what will actually happen. Nevertheless, what we also have to be mindful of is that currently what has occurred is that all of the goals, the 23% small business goals from a prime contract perspective, that all the government has to meet, that still is a USC and United States code. That's a statute. So as it stands right now, all of the goals are at the floor. So originally, the only goal that actually changed for specifically for socioeconomically disadvantaged businesses or SDBs were the SDB goal of 15%. But everything else was still 5, still 3, as respectively. So now everything is back at its original goal percentages, and by statute, nothing can go below that. You're correct in that it has been challenges to the 8A program, and there was a bill that was that never got out of committee under the Biden administration. Nothing to say that bill won't come back up, but my hope is that still people will continue just to do the right thing, because there still continue to be this misinformation about who is actually receiving these benefits. So all Black folks are not the only one that are 8A. The 8A vendors are diverse backgrounds to include people that are not people of color. And so, again, what we do and what others do, continue to engage your contracting office, continue to engage your small business specialist and the Small Business Development Center at the Small Business Administration to ask them specifically what are going to be the resources available to us to continue our pursuit. And then there are also
a plethora of free government contracting groups that are out there that provides information. And then, of course, you have persons such as myself, as well as others that are in this space to educate and as well as support. And that the trick becomes or making sure that whomever you engage for any information, they are a legit, viable source. And so that is going to be more important than it's ever been, because what you want to always be engaged with is an honest broker.
Well, one thing we know, the folks down running the show don't care about existing statutes. So we certainly see what happened there. Let me go to questions from the panel. Mustafa, you first.
Well, Ms. Smith, thank you for the information that you shared. I spent, good gracious, 22 years in federal service. So often we find that there are goals that are set, and when they are not met, unless there is a mechanism that forces folks to do the right thing or to make sure that they address whatever the gaps are, then someone just didn't hit the goal. So could you walk folks through what happens if someone does not reach said goal?
Well, I think what we have to do is give the word goal its proper meaning. And so a goal, just like we set them every day, is something we aspire to have and to be. So there are goals that are set across government. The prime contract goal for small businesses is 23% across government. So when an agency may not necessarily meet its women-owned small business goal of 5%, if it meets its 23% goal collectively, it is compliant with the statute. So I think it's been probably 2 years, 94 and maybe 2016, when the government ever met its woman-owned small business goals, but they're goals. And so what we have to do is make sure we're leveraging the goal, we're leveraging our capability. The idea is not to show up to market your social economic status, but show up prepared because you're capable. And as a former contracting officer, the person that signed the contracts, the persons that putting these solicitations and proposals, RFPs together for industry to quote on, in our policy and even in the regulation, there was never anything that asked us, the color of people. Not to dismiss what's going on. I'm not going to discount it because I'm mindful of it. But internal to government, what I will say is that there are as many people who are intent on doing the right thing, and the Federal Acquisition Regulation implements various statutes. And so as long as Congress do not appeal or change a statute, the government is going to be compelled to be compliant with the statute. And so as long as we show up capable and prepared to do the jobs, I think the selections will continue to be the same despite the efforts, because the efforts have always been there. So they're a bit unmasked now, but there really isn't anything new under the sun. We've been talking about this for several years, and we persevered and we pushed through. And so now we just need to not get caught up with the chaos, stay calm, prepare ourselves, position ourselves, do the necessary pivoting and planning, and pursue the efforts we know we have the wherewithal and ability to accomplish. As long as we do that, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but I think that we will have challenges where challenges will occur, but I think we still can also maximize some opportunities as well.
Melinda?
What are the specific challenges that you do see coming with this?
Well, it's hard to say specific challenges. So what you may experience with a challenge is the anxiousness of those internal to government to make sure that they are doing the right thing. As everyone has witnessed, you have these multiple policies that are coming out, and people still are trying to do the right thing. As long as we went through the regulations and they have pulled any reference back that mention DEI, but those are potential clauses and things of that nature, it does not change the fundamental structure of government procurement. So again, let's continue to work on the things that was a challenge to us as a culture of people or community, such as, understanding how to gain access to the right people. So we learn how to network. We learn the true nature of outreach and engagement. We talked about accessibility for capital. So we learn how to adequately go out and pursue those opportunities, taking advantage of the community development financial institutions that are really more small business centric than your normal banking institution. And if we continue to do those things, the government will always look for people who can actually comply and perform the needs of the government. These relationships, people have established great relationships with their government counterparts and customers. The other than the huge hit to anything related to DEI, for the most part, I think other contractors will still have those opportunities because there's still requirements. There still is anticipation of spending $700 billion, and it's got to go to someone. And again, it's about what's and that becomes the concern.
All right, Scott.
I want to be, I'm trying to understand your presentation. Under the Trump administration, are you saying that DOGE and Trump, you don't believe they're going to come after the Small Business Administration and black federal contractors who may be making money off the government? And I'm bifurcating that with DEI. I got you there. But are you saying that you don't think that the Small Business Administration is going to get attacked by this administration and to cut off those dollars, given his recklessness and given the first 10, 20 days of this administration?
I would never.
Is that your position?
That is not my position. That is not what I'm communicating. What I'm communicating is that at present, the small business goals and the requirement for 23% of prime contract to small business is under the authority of a United States code. Those codes and those numbers are
everything he's doing is under the code, and he's violating it.
Well, we got acts and we got different things, but a USC code requires Congress to appeal and change.
Okay, so given the uncertainty going forward, and I think there's going to be great uncertainty, but for the sake of this conversation, given that uncertainty, shouldn't you and I and others be encouraging black federal contractors to diversify their business portfolio, to look at private sector contracting to diversify their portfolio so that they're not going to be federal contractors at the 70, 80, 90% level if they can, or at least put energy into looking into the private sector so that they won't get hit as hard when Trump comes after this program?
Absolutely. And myself, as well as my friends and colleagues, we've always, advocated for you not to be government dependent, period. No one should be getting in business to merely do business with the government. Yeah. So there should already have been a plan or risk mitigation strategy that facilitated that level of diversity. However, we have to own what we walk into, and far too often we've gotten caught up on the let's get rich quick scheme because that's what somebody sold us, and that's where we put our focus. No, we've always advocated, I always advocated for your being able to do business with whomever you desire, B2B, B2C, B2G, if that's the case. But business to B2G, that should be a strategy, not your whole makeup for being as a contractor. And so even from a business perspective, my colleagues and I, when we're talking concepts and principles, we're trying to give you universal fundamental principles that is going to allow you and facilitate your being able to establish relationships with anyone, but more specifically people other than government. If I teach you the rules of engagements about networking and outreach, those are the rules of engagement for networking and outreach with anyone. It's common courtesy. I
can tell you as a legal advisor, I'm telling my clients, large and small, to get ready for the attack and to get ahead of it and take affirmative steps to mitigate what's coming their way. And if it never comes their way, so be it. But if it does, they should be super prepared, not only legally, but financially, but more importantly, strategically. But thank you for your comments.
Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
That is the strategy we should be telling them.
All right, Lori, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, folks, going to a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, MAGA. These white folks are really upset with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett because she called it like she saw it, talking about mediocre white boys. We'll talk about the Crockett Chronicles next, right here in Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing on average $50 each. That's $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. If you want to join our Bring the Funk fan club, you can give via Cash App, going to the Stripe app. And so this is the QR code right here. Use this QR code to give via Stripe for Cash App. You can also, of course, if you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com to find that QR code. Of course, you can give to us checks and money orders, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. And some of y'all have hit me. I check our P.O. Box at least once every 2 weeks. So these are the checks in the last 2 weeks. So checks and money orders. So I appreciate that. So I'll be opening envelopes all night. I'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now, we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $4.8 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.
Hello, we're the Critter Fixers. I'm Dr. Bernard Hodges.
And I'm Dr. Terrence Ferguson.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'm telling y'all, MAGA cannot stand my Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. She was on CNN last night, and boy, she got these racist white folks upset. Roll it.
I am tired of the white tears. Listen, if you are competent, you are not concerned. When I walk into Congress every single day, you know why I don't feel a way and why you can't make me doubt who I am is because I know that I had to work 10 times as hard as they did just to get into the seat. When you look and you compare me to Marjorie Taylor Greene or me to Lauren Boebert, there is no comparison. And that is the life that we have always lived. So the only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys that have been beaten out by people that historically have had to work so much harder. This is why they don't want us to have education. This is why they are trying to literally say we won't fund the HBCUs, because they know that if they've already gone after affirmative action and they're saying, you know what, don't allow them to come into, say, these PWIs, as we call them, don't allow them to come into these institutions, we know why they created the HBCUs in the first place. It was because they wouldn't allow us into the white institutions. And so now they're not allowing us in. And now they're saying, you know what, we're also going to defund the HBCUs. You know why? Because they don't want any more Kamala Harrises. They don't want any more Jasmine Crockett's. But I got news for them. I don't care what they do. We will fight to the end to make sure that we get our due. Because again, if you want to talk about the people that shouldn't be in this country, you probably need to look in the mirror, because the last time I checked, the Native Americans who some of ICE have been rounding up, or the Puerto Ricans who are absolutely Americans, listen, the only people that came and colonized this place are your ancestors, Trump.
That's what I'm talking about. And y'all keep in mind, this racist white boy that Trump was forced to fire last time, they brought back to a major job in the State Department. This is what, go to my iPad, this is what that racist, mediocre white man posted on October 4th, 2024. Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Unfortunately, our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men. Melinda, this is real simple, and I keep trying to tell people this, and I've been saying this for years. The real issue with all these little white men running around mad is because a lot of these white folks who are upset, who are attacking DEI, they are mad that they now have to compete. They are mad that black women are going to college more than anybody else. And I'm gonna go ahead and say this, it's some black men who are also hating on sisters because they mad about their education. But the real deal is, a lot of these white folks, they believe that any job a black person has was supposed to be their job. How dare you? My sister told me a story. She said they were at a baseball game, and she was telling some of the other moms, the non-melanated moms, she was telling them about her son, my nephew, Trey, getting a scholarship to Seton Hall. And one of the white moms said, well, my blonde-haired daughter likely won't be getting one of those. And then my sister, without missing a beat, said, well, when we went to the welcome reception, there was a whole lot of blonde-haired folk there, and very few folks look like my son, so maybe your daughter should have studied harder. So and I was like, that's what I'm saying, sis. But Melinda, that's the deal. These white folks really believe that they are always the most qualified.
100%. You know, I grew up in what I call an aggressively white town in Santa Barbara, California. And my mom was an educator. My dad was the head of facilities management at UC Santa Barbara. I was at the top of my class when I graduated from high school. I had the second highest number of awards and scholarships and accolades awarded to any student in that school.
Oh, hell no. You wanted them uppity Negroes. Oh, you wanted them.
But
DEI.
I should have worn my uppity Negro shirt. But go ahead, Melinda. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But I got it because I worked hard, and I can tell you how many times I was told I only received those things because I was black. And I realized as I went through college and went into my career, there's no scenario for anyone that if you show up as a black person, if you show up as a woman into a higher position where you got there because of hard work, you will always be looked at as a DEI hire, what they think DEI is, and you were never there because of merit. And it's interesting. I just feel like they have mixed up meritocracy with mediocrity.
But see, Scott, this is why I ain't never gave a shit what white people thought. So let's just start there. Then again, I ain't never gave a shit what black people thought. So I never got caught up in yeah, Melinda, this show called Unfiltered for a reason. And so when Clarence, I ain't Clarence Thomas. See, Clarence Thomas walking his silly ass around, man, it's like the white people in Yale were looking at me and they were like, he only got here for affirmative action. I mean, I ain't like how they were thinking about me. So Clarence Thomas been walking around and he was saying, oh, I don't even, my Yale degree is in my basement. I'm looking because of how they treated me. I don't give a damn. How your ass go from being a Black Panther supporter to being a punk ass? And that's the thing. And so I think what we have to do, we have got, and I put this on a lot of black people, we have not prepared enough of our black kids to be able to tell a lot of people, black and white, y'all can kiss my ass.
Yeah, you know, every time I talk to law students and young people, I tell them the first part of your self-actualization is loving yourself. Because if you love yourself, it doesn't matter what people say about you. I will never delegate the power to define how I feel about myself to another person, black, white, yellow, or brown, because it's too precious of a right for me. And so in these big corporate white environments or in private white institutions, you got to love yourself and you got to believe in yourself. If somebody criticizes you or think that you are less than them, that's their problem. Your confidence is affecting their view of the world, not the other way around. And so, you know, the whole DEI attack by white America or white conservatives is just rooted in ignorance and stupidity. That show me where DEI, any policy, anywhere, says that if you are, quote, for whatever reason, a DEI hire, that somehow you are inherently suspect and a white man is inherently better than you simply because of the color of his skin. Show me that policy. Show me in writing where anyone has ever written that, and you won't find it, if you will. You will not find it, which is why our rhetoric, even about black excellence, for example, right? What is black excellence? I know it's prideful and what have you, but in my view, black excellence undermines my total excellence. I don't just compete against black people. I compete against all people, right? So I'd rather you say I'm a great lawyer who happens to be black, as opposed to I'm a great black lawyer. White people call me a great black lawyer all the time, and I have to check them on it for that very reason. I think black people need to be talking about their excellence and that they happen to have melanin in their skin, as opposed to I'm great, black, blah, blah, blah. So we got to fight back on all of this stuff, especially these DEI hires. I just wrote a piece that was published in The Hill I'm going to send to you about this whole DEI air crash and Donald Trump's ignorance in his press conference when he started talking about this tragedy. So we got to fight back.
Mustafa?
Well, everything that Scott said, you know, it's always interesting. I like to take a look at crises and then ask the question, who was in charge when those crises were going on that allowed, you know, these very devastating things to happen? So if we look at the banking crises that we went through, it was not black folks who were leading those banks and making the decisions about
right.
We'll stop there. If we look
it was one black dude, Stanley O'Neill at Merrill Lynch.
Yeah, one out of tens of thousands, right? And then if you look at the housing crisis, again, when you look at the top housing organizations, builders, those different types of things, once again, it was not black folks who were there. If you look at the healthcare crisis, and then you can even go and take a look. Scott talked about pilots. I actually wrote a piece not long ago where I took a look at who are actually flying the jets when we had the, you know, the unfortunate sets of things that have happened when planes have come down, not just most recently, but going back through history, because we know in our country we have some of the safest skies, but there have been those moments. And it is not black pilots who are leading those planes. So if you want to talk about individuals who do not have the skills that are necessary to lead entities, then we have to take a look and see who actually were those folks who are doing it. So it's very clear when people use this scapegoating around DEI that it has nothing to do with facts. It has nothing to do with truth. It has everything to do with a bigoted view of if I say this enough times, then folks might actually start to believe it. And we saw that play out in the last election.
Oh, yeah. And it's like perfect example. I was just sitting here and I was responding to his tweet. So let me pull it up for y'all. Frank Luntz, the pollster, he had something to say, Melinda, about Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. He goes, go to my iPad, he goes, this type of language is popular in progressive circles, but it's toxic waste to voters outside of that. Jasmine, for U.S., won her House seat by nearly 70% last year, so she won't see any electoral consequences, but other Dems might if this language becomes trendy with their base. Well, you know, I had to respond to Lil Frank, and I said, bullshit, Frank Luntz. You have no clue about the crap black folks have to deal with every day, and your focus groups refuse to deal with what I lay out in my book, White Fear. You keep making excuses for white voters. So what's interesting is Frank Luntz doesn't call out the white MAGA folk for their attacks on DEI. He doesn't say that that language is toxic to other voters, but because Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett calls out mediocre white boys, he defines that to be toxic.
You know, it reminds me of that Lyndon B. Johnson quote. Someone just reminded me of it when he says, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. And if you give him somebody to look down on, he'll empty his pockets for you. And that's exactly what they are. They are masterful at their messaging of being able to create a common enemy to make their base feel included and galvanized and feel like they're the victims. That's all that this is. They are masters at it.
And better.
Really are.
And better.
Yeah, man. So it's just, I mean, people just need to understand really what's going on here. And we're just not, I mean, what the folks like Frank Luntz don't understand. In fact, he was on CNN the other day and he was talking, he kept talking about how, well, this is the stuff, it shows in my focus groups how these voters don't want to hear it. Here's the real deal. White boys like Frank Luntz refuse to call out the racism, the bigotry, the discrimination, and the soft bigotry of these folks. See, the real deal here, Mustafa, is they don't want to be challenged. See, that's why they're pissed off. They hate. So Frank, where are your tweets when these same white folks call Jasmine Crockett ghetto? We know what they're saying. See, that's what cracks me up. He wants her to change her language because these white folks are made uncomfortable with that toxic language, but they are very comfortable when MAGA applies DEI to everything, even in the plane crash, but all the pilots were white.
We saw what they did to their boy Vivek, right? When he said that, you need to up your education and you need to be better prepared. And that's the reason that they needed to bring people, from other locations into the country.
They got rid of him so fast.
Exactly. So they will also check their own. But he forgot that privilege, and you can add white privilege to it, says that I can create the narrative. The narrative does not have to be filled with truth or facts, but it does have to make sure that it continues to highlight that no matter what, that we are the chosen ones. And that's why we have to continue, whether it's the Black Star Network or other places where you can make sure that we are uplifting and sharing our stories about how we have been able to do amazing things and continue to do amazing things. It's so critically important because erasure is real. And it is a part of how they operate. And through that erasure, they can also make sure that those who don't necessarily are not folks who read a whole lot or folks who expose themselves to a number of different types of success stories can be manipulated. So I call it the pimping of America, but, others can call it what they want to call it.
Well, and look, I mean, there's no doubt, and I'm quite sure, Scott, that you got way too many stories of walking into rooms and they thought you would help, and not the managing partner or the top legal dog, and again, and what they expect. We have to show decency, love. We have to, we got to apologize for their stupidity, even though they make the assumption that, you somehow can't be the lawyer.
Or the lead lawyer. I've sat in depositions where the other side has kept talking to the white associate, and I've trained the white associate not to respond. until they figure out I'm the lead. So I'm the lead partner, and they just didn't even presume that. I've been at a reception for a bit at my firm, opening an office in another jurisdiction, and one of our largest clients came up to me and said, could you take this and get me another drink? And I'm in a $2,000 suit. There's no way I could be a partner at the firm. The first African-American associate in the history of the firm to be promoted to equity partner, let alone the first black managing partner in the history of the firm. It is the privilege piece, and it's been ingrained since slavery, just like our own slave mentality of being inferior or thinking less of ourselves as a community and not standing up for ourselves. It still lives in our blood and our bones, and there are a lot of us who fight it, right? Everybody on this panel fights it without a doubt, but there's just not enough of us fighting this nonsense. Whether it's DEI or Donald Trump is able to riff recklessly and reprehensively and just, use his platform to denigrate women and people of color. And we don't vote, so then we can't really effectively fight back because we don't control the Senate and the House. And elections have repercussions, and we're living with these repercussions. We got 2 years, maybe 4. But what happens after Donald Trump? He's indoctrinated thousands of others, judges, elected officials, state representatives, and so forth and so on. This is going to be a long fight simply because we didn't vote in the masses the way we should. Despite telling America how she should vote, America showed us that she is still who she is, not who we want her to be.
Yeah.
That's our reality. And so we got a long fight ahead of us.
Listen, I remember it was in Arlington, Texas. I was in a Dillard's, and I'm looking at some suits. I just left church, and this white dude, he's like 5-6 rows over. Excuse me, I need a 38. I said, who the hell are you talking to? I said, do you see the suit I have on? Does it look like I work here? I said, ain't nobody here dressed like I am. You don't see no goddamn badge on my name. I said, why you had to go get my ass a 44? See, I ain't even gonna sit there and tolerate it. It just ain't gonna happen.
Hey, Roland, you know what? Let me share a quick story with you real quick. The Morehouse Board of Trustees 2 years ago, we were in this not limousine, but what do you call it? The Sprinter van. Chairman of the board, guys in the money game, professors, just like 7 of us. And we had just flown in. Everybody probably flew in first class, but everybody started talking about their experience in flying or in their work experience, about those very moments you and I just shared. And all 7 of them were worth millions of dollars. And all 7 of them had a story just like you told or I told. And it was a running thread of commonality of how money and success had nothing to do with how we were treated in America. That the color of our skin still dictated that we were the N-word or that we were black and less, despite the heights we had reached after Morehouse College. How do we share that commonality? That race is the tie that binds us to the poor black kid in Southeast Washington. Economics separates us, but we're no different than the poor kid in Southeast Washington in the minds of those who are white and don't look like us and only see the color of our skin. It was an amazing conversation, and we laughed at every story. We laughed at the irony of every one of those stories. Too much, too crazy.
But see, again, though, I think part of the thing is that too many of us want to make them feel comfortable, and then we don't want any drama, so I don't want to be the angry black dude. But I will say this here, my man, and Scott, you may know him, He's an attorney in Chicago, Peter Bino.
Oh, yeah.
We were playing golf, and Peter told, this probably was one of the best. I'm going to use this one day. I'm telling you, he gave one of the best responses ever. So he's on the plane. Now, Peter's like 5'5", 5'6". All right, Peter's short. Yeah. Peter's a short dude. All right, so get on the plane, first class. Old white man looks at Peter. Well, you ain't tall enough to play basketball. And you ain't big enough to play football. So what do you do to be sitting in first class?
No, he didn't.
Now, hold up. Peter said, I'm the biggest drug dealer in Chicago. And sat down and popped open his Wall Street Journal and read the paper. For the rest of that flight, that white man was in shock. He was in shock. I said, Peter, that's the best. I'm telling you right now, I'm waiting to use that one, and I know it.
That's Peter too. I believe you said it.
And I know it's coming. All right, y'all.
But it just goes back to what Pastor Lamar said. Just leave us alone.
Right. Because when I come back at you, I don't want to hear your whining and complaining. Don't say no. Man, because I remember we on the plane. This white woman sitting next to me. You don't get on the plane and people know me, so they come, hey, Mr. Martin, love your work, appreciate what you do. And so then the white woman's trying to figure out like why are these people speaking to me? So we sit in seat 1A, 1B. She trying to figure it out, and then she's like, oh my, well, everybody keeps speaking to you. What do? You play football? I said, are your ass a cheerleader?
You play football. You got to play something.
That's the thing.
You can't be an intellectual.
I hear that.
You can't be a businessman.
I hear that.
You can't be in media. You got to be a football player or a basketball player.
I hear that. Well, are you a cheerleader?
Maybe an actor.
Now, y'all remember all these folks, there are a lot of people in support of the Palestinians, the folks, there were a lot of Muslims. They were not happy with Vice President Kamala Harris, and there were people who were campaigning against her. Now, we tried to warn them in terms of really what's going on and how, okay, but y'all, matter of fact, I was going to do this later. I need y'all to roll a FAFO stinger. Yes, go ahead and roll it. So for all the people who were highly critical of Vice President Kamala Harris, calling her genocide Kamala, saying genocide Joe, and they were saying, no, we need to teach her and the Democrats a lesson. And we kept saying, y'all know Crazy Man don't like none of y'all at all. Well, guess what?
None of y'all.
Moments ago at the White House, and when I say moments, like literally about 40 minutes ago, the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon Donald the Con Trump held a news conference with the indicted Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who's also crooked. And so those two crooks get along quite well. Held a joint news conference. And at that joint news conference, Trump basically said, Palestinians, y'all can go to hell. Y'all ain't never coming back to Gaza. Listen.
Gaza is a hellhole right now. It was before the bombing started, frankly, and we're going to give people a chance to live in a beautiful community that's safe and secure, and I think you're going to see a tremendous outflowing of support. I can tell you, I spoke to other leaders of countries in the Middle East, and they love the idea. They say it would really bring stability, and what we needed.
He also called Gaza, the Riviera of the Middle East, and this is a question here that came from Kelly O'Donnell with NBC.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister. You are talking tonight about the United States taking over a sovereign territory. What authority would allow you to do that? Are you talking about a permanent occupation there, redevelopment? And Mr. Prime Minister, do you see this idea as a way to expand the boundaries of Israel and to have a longer peace, even though the Israeli people know how important that land is to you and your citizens, just as the space is inherited by the Palestinians as well?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent.
So Donald Trump is saying we're going to take over and own the Gaza Strip, and he often talks about how great that land is, how it's wonderful, how it's amazing, and he envisions these great homes on the Gaza Strip. Just listen to this, y'all.
We have an opportunity to do something that could be phenomenal. And I don't want to be cute, I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so this could be so magnificent. But more importantly than that is the people that have been absolutely destroyed that live there now can live in peace in a much better situation, because they're living in hell. And those people will now be able to live in peace. We'll make sure that it's done world class. It'll be wonderful for the people. Palestinians mostly we're talking about. And I have a feeling that despite them saying no, I have a feeling that the king in Jordan and that the general president, but that the general in Egypt will open their hearts and will give us the kind of land that we need to get this done. And people can live in harmony and in peace.
Mustafa, where are all of the genocide Don tweets? Where did they all of a sudden go?
It's a great question. We know there was all kinds of manipulation that was going on during the election. You had the bots, you had other folks paying folks off to say certain things, and then of course you had other folks who maybe that's how they truly believe, but there was no facts that should have led anyone to believe that Donald Trump was going to do anything but what he just did. So we've seen not only in relationship to Palestine, but we've also heard some of his comments in relationship to Panama and to Greenland and to a number of places, and wanting to make Canada a 51st state and all this other kind of stuff. So he believes that he has power to do whatever he wants because the checks and balances that are usually there in relationship to Congress and to the courts have not been playing out the way that this system was supposed to be built upon. Now, the question becomes, what will the international community do? And where will they show up in relationship to some of the actions that he is talking about trying to do? And then the other part that I always share with folks, and everybody's always like, well, Mustafa, what do we do? What do we do about this, that, and the other? I also remind folks that the midterms is not that far away. So not only do we have to address what's happening in this moment and call out injustices, fund organizations that are trying to do what they can to help folks, we also got to make sure that if you say you don't like what you're seeing now, then you have an opportunity in the midterms to begin the long journey of addressing what is systemically being tried to put in place.
Melinda?
Look, Donald Trump has always been who he's been. So I don't know why people thought that this situation would be any different. I think he was always going to go this route. He was never going to help the people of Gaza. He's talking about rebuilding, and it's not going to be rebuilt for the Palestinians. And I also don't think this is going to help the Jewish community at all either. I think he's kind of putting a target on their back as well, because they're going to be blamed for this. And I think he's always been who he said he was, and I don't know why anybody's surprised.
Well, but no one is surprised, but all of those people who had so much smoke for Vice President Kamala Harris, Scott, it's amazing.
Well, we know why they had smoke for her.
But again, a lot of them were so-called progressives, a lot of them were so-called liberals, so-called Democrats, but now they're real quiet, Scott.
Yeah, because they jumped out. They jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. The great irony of the press conference, the impromptu one at 4 o'clock today or 5 o'clock, and this one is earlier they were saying about developing Gaza and that it was a hellhole before, during, and after the war. Well, he's standing next to the guy that made it a hellhole. He's standing next to the prime minister of Israel who was paying Hamas to leave Gaza. And now you want to displace the Palestinians. It's their home. You bombed it. Now you fix it. And now you want the Arabs to fix it. As Israel, I was on earlier today with Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire, who is of Arab descent. And he said, well, Israel would play a part in it. Well, what leverage does the U.S. have in making Jordan or Egypt or the UAE or anyone else rebuild Gaza or to take the Palestinians as refugees? They've resisted that up to this point. And so, and the Qatarians, if you will. And so this babble about like you're going to create a Mar-a-Lago for the Palestinians, but you're going to displace them so they have no country, given how important that land is to both sides, it borders on the nonsensical with no leverage. And I got to tell you, the real issue is getting rid of Hamas. Hamas is as responsible for the demolition and the deaths of these Palestinians as part of this war as Israel is, so the blame can go around. But this is going to be an expensive project, and nobody wants to pay. Nobody wants the Palestinians in their backyard, and nobody wants to pay for the Palestinians simply because Hamas used them as human shields. This is far more complicated, and quite frankly, and his rosy presentation is just pie in the sky at this point. We have to pay attention to this. But you're right, Roland. The people that voted for him, who didn't like the Democrats and Biden, let me tell you something. You voted for it, now you own him. You got to live with the consequences of your vote.
Well, and for those people who, from Venezuela, they also...
Michiganders.
The Venezuelans also effed around and found out.
Oh, yeah.
Roll it.
Yeah. Yeah.
More than betrayed. Beyond betrayed. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign, the elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that it was not going to touch the documented people. TPS holders are people that are living a legal life in the United States. The elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that it was not going to touch the documented people. I want to hear them today. I want to know what they have to say. We are not here because we came as tourists. We are here because we got kicked out from our country because for over 20 years there is a cruel dictatorship in Venezuela.
They used us.
Bye, Felicia. Bye, Felicia.
All I have for y'all is Scarface.
Latinos for Trump. Welcome to the border.
All I have for y'all is Scarfaces, no tears.
Mm-hmm. I just don't know why everyone thinks they're special and thinks that they're not going to be affected by any of this. Just because they said they weren't going to do this doesn't mean that they weren't going to do this. Everyone thinks they're going to be affected by these things.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I mean, every time they cry and moan, we're just going to go ahead and play it. Let me run this by y'all real quick. Democratic members of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform sent a letter to the twice impeached criminally convicted felon in chief Donald the Con Trump, urging him to stop his purge of nonpartisan civil servants. The action follows a protest they had today where members of Congress are also speaking out with regards to what took place. There have been a lot of videos that I have been seeing floating on social media of members of Congress, CBC members truly speaking out. Here was Congressman Maxwell Frost.
Hey everybody, Congressman Maxwell Frost here with many of my colleagues. We're here because an unelected billionaire has access to the private information of our constituents, and we want answers.
Yeah, so it's Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett here, and let me tell y'all, oversight is going to do our job. So we are here because we need to understand why it is that our Department of Treasury has been broken into, and we need to go ahead and handle the person that decided that they were going to have the audacity to go after our information.
Seth Magaziner from Rhode Island, former state treasurer. We need to know who is in control of the Treasury, what their permissions are, what their intentions are, and what they want to do with your money and your identity. We need answers now. What do we need?
We saw yesterday. We saw what happened yesterday when they were in front of USAID. Here's the thing, Mustafa. Democrats are not. They don't control the House. They don't control the Senate. What they can do is impact the narrative. And this is what they should be doing every single day. In fact, Senator Elizabeth Warren should be standing outside of the offices of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and talk about how $11 billion has been saved by taxpayers, regular, ordinary Americans, but Elon Musk wants to shut it down. They want to shut down direct file and things along those lines. Here's the thing. They can't make this, and I'm not dismissing the federal workers, but the face of this, it can't be, this is the impact on the federal workers. It has to be, this is the impact on working Americans. That's the narrative they have to be driving.
It's all about storytelling. It is about making sure that folks have an understanding, whether you're, a senior who happens to be in our communities, or you are a mother, or a number of different types of folks. You've got to help people to have an understanding of how these programs, how these sets of resources that these folks now have access to, whether they're trying to slow them down or eliminate them or whatever it might be, or the information that they have. For years, Republicans always used to talk about government overreach. They used to talk about all these different types of things, and now they are embracing the things that they used to call out. Now, for the everyday person, you really need to have a better understanding. And these members and other folks have to really put a spotlight on how this stuff works, how you could be impacted, how your information could end up in all kinds of places, or how someone could use your information to try and manipulate you. We've got a number of different dynamics that are playing out that we've got to keep a spotlight on.
Here is another clip of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from that particular rally. Watch.
We are not going to sit around while you go ahead and desecrate our Constitution, or you look at the laws that have been passed into law and say, never mind, we'll just ignore that. Instead, we are going to be in your face, we are going to be on your asses, and we are going to make sure you understand what democracy looks like.
Please welcome the Southern University.
The rally here, Melinda, folk want to see fighters. That's what they want right now.
Absolutely. And I'm not surprised that Jasmine is the one leading it. It's going to take someone like her that has fire lit up inside them, that has no problem talking back and confronting these people. She is always willing to just tell the truth. I just think that people need to understand, and going back to what you said about messaging, I think that that is key in this situation, because if people truly understood what is at risk here, well, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place if people actually understood what was at risk. But I think now people have to start listening, because we can't let this go on past these 2 years, past these 4 years. So I absolutely think the Democratic leaders have the opportunity and the responsibility to fix their messaging and making sure the American people know exactly what is happening.
All right, then. Scott had to go, but let me thank Melinda and Mustafa for being on today's show. Thank you so very much, folks. That is it, folks. Listen, if y'all want to support the work that we do, listen, nobody else in Black-owned media is doing what we're doing on these issues, talking about them every single day, how we're covering them. So please join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to give via Cash App, you can use the Stripe QR code. That's it right here on the screen. Also, if you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com to access it. Also, we want you to send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Don't forget also download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered merchandise. Get your shirt. Hashtag we tried to tell you, FAFO 2025. And also, don't blame me. I voted for the black woman. Go to rolandmartin.creator-spring.com or go to the blackstarnetwork.com. Be sure to get my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Get the audio version that I read on Audible. And don't forget, support Fanbase. Download the app. And if you want to be an investor, go to startengine.com/fanbase. That's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla! Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?